Hello everyone and welcome to Magic Gathering Strat. I'm BinkyB and this will be limited lesson number 4, and it's going to be about drafting and deck building, the mana bases and so forth. What should I pick? And other interesting questions. So I want to start off by establishing the pick order I tend to have as my default. When I crack open pack 1 and I'm going to take a pick, the first thing I look for is a bomb. And a bomb is like Ashok, Nightmare Weaver. Comes down early, dominates the game and just wins. That's a perfectly reasonable bomb. If there is no bomb, then I tend to go for premium removal if there is one. Let's say, where did it go? Hero's Downfall. 3 mana, destroy something. Can't be much better than that. It's instant and 1 color and perfectly reasonable. It's a lot better than other types of removal. So that would be my default second choice. If there is no bomb and no premium removal, I'm looking for a card to build around or a card that I would be happy to play in a specific color. So let's say if I don't have a bomb and there's no premium removal, I might take something like Erebos' Emissary. If I'm playing black, I'd be very happy to have this card. It's very strong. It's not something I'm really that happy to first pick, but it's okay. I mean, it works, but it's not the best there is. Build around cards in Theras, I'm not sure if there are that many, but a card like Burning Vengeance in Innistrad, for example, that's a perfectly reasonable build around me card. I guess Nykthos could be something. I'm going the Devotion deck with the Nykthos. That could be it. If there's no bombs, no premium removal, no card I'm happy to play in a color, and no build around card, then I'm pretty sad. Then I would pick a card that keeps me the most open. So the strongest 1 color card I can find. Let's say there is nothing in the pack that is even remotely playable besides like a Rage of Perforos, then I would take that. If there are a colorless card that keeps me open but is in general pretty bad, like Opaline Unicorn, let's say my pack is just that bad, I'd rather take this, because then I know I have a reasonable card that I can put in any deck I get, basically. So that's the pick order. If none of the above exists, then I would just throw the pack away. No, not really, but then I wouldn't look twice at the card I pick, basically. So that's generally how I would like to pick a card from my first pack in a draft. We're gonna head over to post-draft, when we are finished with our pile of cards and we're constructing a deck. So here we have a deck that I have assembled. It looks pretty reasonable, a decent curve, some good cards like a Grey Merchant, and 2 Anger of the Gods is pretty good, a Thoughtseize, so we got some value. Pretty good deck. But there is one big problem, a fatal flaw with this deck, and that is that we have only a few red cards, but they're all double red. 1 red red, 1 red red, 2 red red, and so forth. And that messes up the whole deck, mana base wise. So let's say those 5 red cards were single red, then we could get away with playing like 4 mountains maybe, and 13, or in this case 14 swamps, and that would be pretty nice. It would be reliable to have a swamp on turn 1 for 1-drops, double black on turn 4 without a problem. But since they're double red, we will not be able to play 4 mountains. That's just insanity. We probably have to play 8, maybe 9. I mean, a pretty large number for that few cards. And then all of a sudden it's not that certain we have double black on turn 4, and that messes up the consistency of the deck, and that's no good. You should avoid this if you can. For example, yes, Borderline Minotaur is a decent card, but I'd rather pick like, let's see if I can find a good one. That isn't too bad. I mean, another tormented hero would have been perfectly reasonable. I would have taken, say, the Rambler probably over it. I mean, just because of the mana. And that's something you should keep an eye out for. Even if they're a good mana fix, there's no reasonable point in taking double red cards if you're heavy black, for example, if they're not really good. Anger of the Gods could qualify. It's not that fantastic, but let's say there was a bonkers planeswalker for double red, then I would take that and play it. But that's one of the traps people often fall into. Well, I have a couple of red cards and the majority of my spells are black, so I'm gonna play like 13 swamps, 4 mountains, but then you will not be able to play our spells. So watch out for that. That's something you have to keep in mind while drafting. I have another deck here for you. This deck, kind of obvious what the flaw is here, and this is something that is really hard for new players to grasp, and that's the curve. The curve is everything in many decks and many formats. Some decks doesn't have to have a perfect curve, but in Theros, Blue-White Heroic, for example, was the curve out deck. You played a 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop and just bestowed and punched the guy in the face, basically. This deck, while it could have 1-drop into 2-drop, very unlikely, but it could. It can never have a 3-drop because it doesn't contain anyone. And that's something that often happens when, let's say, you get a pack pretty late with a Nessian Courser, which is a fine card, and let's say Seagull's Revenge, which is a much better card. Then you take the Seagull's Revenge because it's better than Nessian Courser, even though you already have a bunch of 6-drops that you don't want. Sometimes you have to say, alright, this Griptide, for example, is so much better than let's find another card, Death Bellow Raider, but I'm going to take the Raider because I have 2 2-drops and I need more. I need something to get out on the field early. And the same goes for like the opposite, of course. I have 1,000 2-drops and I get a choice between Belvice Hoplite and Breaching Hippo. Well, I take the Hippo because I need a 4-drop. Some decks only run 1 and 2-drops, so that could change it a bit, but the curve in aggressive colors with aggressive cards should look something like, maybe, let's move it over here. I mean, this would be a pretty decent curve. The majority is down here, so you get out on the board fast, and then you have a couple of bigger threats to drop if the game goes long. So curve is the bottom line of basically every deck. You have to consider that. You don't need to have 1-drops, you don't need to have 2-drops, but there should be a pretty good reason. Like if you have 3 Anger of the Gods, well then you might want to skip on the 2-drops, at least a bunch of them. Alright, so curve. I'm gonna go over here and have a look at another deck. There we go. This is an example of a well-built deck. It has a pretty good curve, it has the ability to have 1-drop that is also useful later in the game. It has a bunch of 2-drops, it has a pretty good mix of creature and spells. You should aim for about 15 to 8, but it always depends on what type of deck you're building. It has a decent amount of reach guys that could get through, some combat trick guys. I mean, this is a well built deck. This is how it should look like. And also this will allow you to build a decent mana base because it's basically 50-50, so you're gonna tend to have 9 forests and 8 islands. Reason is you have more green early, but it's just slightly, so since you need another land, the 17th land, you're gonna tend to have it to the color with the 1-drops and 2-drops and 3-drops that has the most. We also have 1 double green spell with that. That's stretching a bit. So this is a well-built deck. This is how it should look like. And there's very possible that this person, though it's a fictive deck but whatever, took a Fateful Troll over something pretty good, like let's say a Horizon Chimera. Why did it do that? Well, because 2-drops are more valuable in this deck than a 4-drop, even if it's a good 4-drop. So this deck bets everything on the curve. It says I'm gonna play a 2-drop, a 3-drop, maybe a 4-drop, then I'm gonna put one creature back into your hand and pump up one of my guys and bash, and now you're so far behind that you can't do anything. And if this deck faces the last deck we looked at, this is just gonna destroy that. On the play, it's unlikely that the other deck will have anything on turn 2, so we get 2 points in for free, drop a 3-drop, they have nothing again, bash for 5, and play like, or keep like this up, or play this or whatever. They play their 4-drop, we bounce it, and we just won the game. And it's going to happen 8 or 9 games out of 10. Pretty good. Let's go over to the last ones here. These decks, have I constructed to open some boosters. I'm just gonna reforge them here because they always do this. That can be there. 2-drops, 3-drops. Am I missing anything? No, I don't think so. So this is a Concept Tricare deck. It's pretty nice. We got some bombs, a Tomb Blast, and a Fortress, incremental growth. It's looking good. Now we're gonna crack open a pack and see what we would take if we're considering the mana, the curve, and the overall usefulness of a card together with what we have. So we're gambling on that we actually have a few lands too. I haven't added them, but our mana is decent, so we could take a land, but we're not going to prioritize it over a bomb or something. So let's analyze this. We have 9 creatures and 7 spells, so we're looking kinda low on the creatures. We need more. We're looking good on the 3s, decent on the 4s, and we have a lot of things to do up here. So we're looking for 2-drops, maybe 1-drops, and they should be creatures. But we also have room for taking something else. But now we know what we're after: a creature, and it should cost a pretty low amount of mana. So let's go over and rip up a Concept Tricare booster. I think I have one. Yeah. So I'm gonna open this. Yes. Okay. So is there any way we can? Yes, there is. Okay. So this is our pack. First of all, what do we have here? We have, in our colors, a Jungle Hollow, which would be decent. SK Student fits the bill. We're not that heavy white, so maybe we would like something else. We will see. Can I get this up again? Yeah. Debilitating Injury is a fantastic card. I would be happy to snap that up here. Interacts early, a removal spell. Basically makes it on the 2nd place of my list of pick order. Absent Guide is also a fantastic card. I think I would take Injury over it here because we have a decent amount of 3s. Bravery Sands is not a card, but we have opened a Herald of Anaffence, and that's just bam, exactly what we need. Something to do early. It has potential later in the game. It's just exactly the card we need. So I think my pick here would be Herald of Anaffence, maybe Debilitating Injury. That plays a bit to how the colors are looking in our deck. We have a decent amount of black and a decent amount of green and a much lower count on white, and that would usually tend me to take the black card, and that might be correct even here. But Herald of Anaffence has a higher upside, and I think I could tweak the deck to be more white if I need to. So it's between those 2 cards, and I'm reasonably happy with the pack. The Absent Guide is no longer even a consideration because it doesn't fit what we are missing in the deck. So considering the curve, it's those two. Considering what card plays best with what we have, it's probably debilitating injury, but what we're lacking is creatures, so my bet would be to take Herald of Unoffense and be happy with that. So that's one way to do it. I have another deck here, and this is a Return to Ravnica deck. We're gonna crack up that booster because I think I had one. If this is working, yes. Alright. So this deck has a complete different problem. 17 cards, a pretty good curve. We have 1 drops, 2 drops, a decent amount of 3 drops, and some things to do up here. We even have a bunch of scavenge creatures, so we can do stuff later in the game. But we have 0 non-creature spells. We just jammed creatures. So I would tend to look for a good spell here, primarily removal. Of course, if we open a bomb in green-white or green-white, I would take that. But if there is any kind of removal that are decent, I would probably take that because that's what this deck needs. We have a good curve, we have premium creatures, we're not gonna lose on the battlefield unless they play something we can't handle, and right now that means everything. So we're gonna crack up a Return to Ravnica booster here and see what we get. Alright, let's see if we can make this bigger again. There we go. So let's see here. In our colors we have Ice in the Skies, which is a spell, but it's secretly a creature, so not really what I'm looking for. Vassal Soul is a creature. Ethereal Armor is a non-creature spell, but not that fantastic. Another Drudge Beetle. Chorus of Might, that could be our pick. It's not the best card in the world, but it is decent, and it goes pretty well with what we have because we will have a lot of creatures. We could take the Azorius Charm and splash it. We need like 1 land to do so, but it's not that great, so maybe not. And then we have a Death Presence, and that could be the pick actually. I don't like the card that much, but since we are pretty likely to curve out into just creatures all the way, this could be the card we're looking for, because we will have a lot of creatures and they will die, and we will be able to pump our other creatures up pretty reliably. So I think my pick from this pack would be Death's Presence, even though I think it's a mediocre card at best, but this pack was pretty weak overall. No good cards for anyone basically. The best card is probably the Charm, maybe Ice in the Skies, but yeah, I would take this. It's a non-creature spell, it's pretty impactful in this deck, I would say, and overall I think it's pretty good. It's also secretly a combo with Palisade Giant, because if we can pump that up, they could just never attack, never do damage to us again, and that's pretty cool. So I would take Death's Presence and be decently happy with that. So that's the things I had to talk about when it comes to drafting, and try to pick cards considering the mana curve, the things you're missing, and the colors you're playing. So remember that when you're deciding which card to pick, you should consider, does this go well with my curve? Does this card have a reasonable mana cost for my deck? And is this a card that my deck needs, or is it just more redundancy for cards that I already have? So hopefully you've got something useful out of this, and I will bring you more limited lessons as soon as I can figure out what to talk about. Until then, please leave a comment and have a great